My name is Renee Messing. I'm a partner with Clifton Larson Allen, and I am responsible for overseeing the town's annual audit services.
As we can talk this under budget, we are in receipt almost of a $12,000, a few odd cents grant for to improve the audio system here at the town hall and perhaps provide video streaming so that people have more access to being involved in town meetings in the future. So we hope to get that in place as quickly as possible. So hopefully that'll make it a little easier for you, Renee. All right, we'll go to current business, discussion of possible action, public meeting, open forum discussion to update and allow input and questions from interested citizens on the status and procedure of budgeting, budget amendments, audit process, and any other financial questions. And on the agenda in this manner for a number of reasons. I guess first and foremost because we want to make sure that we are completely accessible and available to the citizenry on any questions. This is a good forum for people to be able to ask questions, hear other questions that are asked, and perhaps that will provide information that you might not have thought to ask, or it might generate other questions based on the questions and answers that you hear tonight. Here tonight. So it's completely obviously unscripted. We don't know what kind of questions you're going to ask. We're hoping that we're completely prepared with whatever question it might be. We have QuickBooks open so we can derive some information from there, but we'll be mainly talking about the audit. In town government, we do opt to have an audit. So the firm that does our monthly financial statements, we have a gentleman that comes in and helps us once a week on that, but for the most part, the town does its own financial work. Now, that's different from the way it was before. We did not have the ability to run financial statements until the beginning of January 2011. We had an opportunity through some software that the town had purchased to cut checks and make deposits. But we had no ability to run any reports based on a general ledger, so there was no profit and loss. Really didn't know where we were. And so that we changed immediately on January 1st of 2011 so that we could run financial statements on the spot and then set up budget versus actual reports as well. We use a software program that's very well known called QuickBooks, so it's easy for us if we have a change of staff to have people up to speed to be able to work within that. When you have financial work to be done and you have an audit, there needs to be separation of responsibilities between those people that do the day-to-day decision-making as far as how the accounts are going to be entered and those that audit. That was not the case in previous time. The same company that did the financial statement work, and quite frankly, they did all the financial statement work, also did the audit and also did our IT. So it wasn't a situation where there was separation of responsibilities, and the idea of having the audit is so that there's an independent study of the work that's being done. These are taxpayer money, a lot of money, obviously, almost a $3 million budget, and so we felt it was important to make that separation change, and that happened in January of 2011. That was a unanimous vote in January of 2011 to change to the firm of Clifton Gunderson. There's specialists in accounting. Not everybody does municipal work, so we were fortunate to be introduced to Renee and her firm, and we've been very pleased. This is a very, very early audit. It's only the end of February, and we already have our preliminary draft. I think we were one of the first, right, to have our work done this year?
Yes.
So that was our goal, to be, number one if we could, because we're trying to get the financial information obviously out to you as quickly as possible and take pride in having it as accurate as possible. So we were glad to set up a very aggressive schedule, and the firm was very good about arranging their schedules so that they could come in and be with us. In the previous situation, the audit was done at the end of the year, so it was like October when the financial statements were issued, almost a year after the fiscal year ended. So we will have our final audit, I would say, within a month. Would that be fair?
I would say probably within a couple of weeks.
Okay, terrific. So by March 15th or so, we'll have it in. So it's a draft form at this point, and we have a draft budget amendment that's in the back that we'll be going through a little bit later. But
wanted to give you some familiarity with what we're doing. We're much more involved at this point in our finances. We do a budget versus actual financial statement with each run of our invoices so that the board members can review where we are in budget and where, after the payment of the bills that they're approving, we will be in budget related to actual. So it's been a process as we've developed those over the years and developed the process over the last 2 years, kind of going from no system to this system. We also took on in 2012 doing our payroll in-house, because that provides us much more information on a direct basis in our financials as well, and provides access to for us to be able to give you direct information directly from our system versus a vendor system. So everything is integrated at this point, and our first year of issuing W-2s went well, and so we were successfully able to integrate that too. So that kind of gives you an overview of where we were and where we are, and I guess we'll start out with any questions that you have. We'd like you to come up, give your name for the clerk if you would. A little bit of exercise so we can work off those tweets.
Lorraine Britt, 3210 South Trinity Lane in the town of Waukesha. I have a question about the labeling of the columns here. Now, this would be the second category, amount increase in budget. Now, does that statement mean that the items listed here, the dollar amounts, that is not what totally it's costing? That's the amount over what was budgeted?
Well, over and under, so it depends. In the first,
Okay, well, I'm looking at the legal fees, so let's just look
that
at
would be an over, so that
Yes.
was not what was spent, but that was spent in excess of the budgeted amount.
Yes. Now, what I would like to know then, is it possible, as you look at that column, and most of them, this one seems to be pretty large, being an increase, and I'll have to say, I haven't studied the budget year by year to say, oh, I've never seen over $100,000 before increase. So what I'm wondering is, anywhere in your books, is it possible for a taxpayer resident to see who the various firms or individual attorneys, and does that include the town attorneys?
Absolutely.
Okay, would it be possible to see how much went to each firm?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And we have some of that information here, but for people who want to make specific requests, and that's why we have
Yes,
the
yes.
statements in-house. We can run for the amount that's spent in legal. We can drill into that particular
Yes.
total and sort it for you by who it was paid to, by how much it was,
Yes.
by what time frame it was, any information that you'd like. You just need to let the clerk know, and she'll
Yes.
develop a report.
I wonder, this might be an extra, and I'm sorry if it is, but maybe it would be possible to have what the issue was. Now, certainly for the town attorney, that's not possible. He's got a lot of issues, but,
Well, what are you saying, Lori?
so do we all.
Yes.
So, at any rate, I would kind of like to see that, seeing that it's that much over what it was planned to be, I assume.
Certainly.
Okay, thank you.
That's terrific. Well, we can answer all of your questions. When we developed the QuickBooks program, we included a segment called class codes. And in certain categories of our budget, we do use what's called class codes when we want to track specific expenses. So for legal, we have several of them. One is the city of Waukesha. The other is for enforcement, so if we have an ordinance or some issue, building issue. We have fire commission, because sometimes they use legal and we're able to track that. If we have a bigger, long-standing issue, we include that. In this case, Five Diamonds has its own class code.
Do you put down which firm it is?
Yes.
That's paid to?
All of that is in here,
Yes,
so you would
okay.
be able to have a report by issue that you can see each check that's written to each firm and for how much and
Okay.
whatever timetable.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So just to finish up, what the legal is broken into, general matters, Mill Creek, there were some questions that we had in the Mill Creek subdivision that we separated. We've been doing some work with Morac, there was a litigation matter there. If there were any snowplow matters, we did that separately, our initial snowplow litigation, and of course the town of Brookfield. So we use specific class codes in the areas where we have larger items that may add up so that we can track it. I mean, one of the things that we do in budgeting is to keep everything segregated in an account, but then be able to have enough information within the information there so that we can easily retrieve it. And the reason it's important for a number of reasons. First of all, for questions from our supervisors, of course, and from the public, to be able to identify how much a specific issue has cost the town. Secondly, so that we can identify how much of those, of those issues that we've now identified, are they ongoing? So that when we look at the budget process, and we start that in August of every year, that we can easily see, well, here's how much we've spent for this particular issue. Do we see that issue ongoing? Then at least we have an idea of what we've spent for that particular issue in this particular time frame, and can extrapolate that perhaps for the next year. If we know that a particular issue has been completely resolved, well, we can immediately take that, a full amount that we spent, out of any consideration for the following year. So it gives us the tool by which not only to have hands-on immediate information as to where their money is going, both for our tracking and for our constituents, but also to be able to budget with very specific information as well. And because we're entering it with this information, we never have to go back and do any other retrieval. I mean, we basically press a button, we're able to get it all out of the system immediately, and we don't have to do any further analysis because the work is done on the front end, doing the class codes on each item, and that way we don't have any issues coming back. We have that information immediately retrievable. Does that answer your question?
Yes, and it sounds like a good way to deal with things. And that just caught my eye because it's so much larger than the other things, and probably ought to be paid attention to by the citizens.
Absolutely. Next question.
Jenny, are we okay?
We're good?
That was a great question. The thing that it brings out to me to bring up is that I look at this draft here, and this is a report card on your ability to budget. This does not really address what you spend on one area or another. And the thing that makes the legal fees stand out is because it was under budgeted. That's really all this says. If you take this number along with the budget number, that's how you find out how much we really spent. I mean, you could have successfully budgeted legal fees to the penny, and it wouldn't be on this report. So any number of the other things within this list could be way more of a bigger expense and way more of a place to look for savings than legal fees. Now, there aren't many, but there are departments that spend more than what we spend on legal fees. This is a report card on your budgeting. At the most recent budget hearing, every person that I can remember that spoke on legal fees spoke in favor of budgeting more money for legal fees. And we were told that this group had come to a decision, a compromise, and that was the number. But we all thought, be careful, because it'll likely be more. I don't know what it's going to be this year, but this is simply, under budgeting for legal fees. Thank you.
That's correct assessment and analysis. This is a identification. The budget amendment is really an identification of overages and underages. Is that word, underages? No? Seems sounded odd. Of how, the money has come in and gone out during the course of the year. For those of you that aren't here with us each time, probably should go through the process of paying the bills. The staff receives, of course, a stack of mail every day. That mail, if it is identified as a billing, is stamped with a specific town of Waukesha receipt stamp and dated. We then place it either for the fire chief in his mailbox, because he reviews his bills and then brings them back to us once he codes them. If they are town and not fire department, specifically than we called what code the bills. So we look at our chart of accounts, we identify what number and what category it's going to be given. Is it, paying for the water that we're buying here? Is it paying for snow plowing? I mean, our financial statements all have very detailed information with very specific subcategories. And so we assign the number that is going to be assigned to. Then on Tuesday mornings, a gentleman comes in that we've hired who's a separate person because of the separation of responsibilities we need to provide. And on Tuesday mornings, he actually enters the bills. So we determine where it's going to go because we know best what category it's supposed to be in. And then he enters the information in QuickBooks and runs the report that, the check detail report. At that point, he also runs a budget to actual analysis report, which shows if those bills were paid, where we would be on the budget to actual for any category, for the entire budget actually. And so then the supervisors have an opportunity during the course of the next week or 2 weeks, depending upon when the next board meeting is going to be, to come in, review the bills, identify any that they might have questions on, ask the staff for any backup. So when they come this evening to a meeting, they're able to, approve the check detail which we provide to all of you guys, how much money we're actually spending. But that's the small amount of time. The big amount of time is spent, having them come through and look at each and every bill if they so choose, initial each and every bill if they so choose, so that they're familiar with every penny that goes in and goes out. That's a process that's been in place for a long time, and we've continued that process. We think it's a very good idea to give the supervisors an opportunity to look at each and every bill. Each of them has expertise in other areas and can add a different type of review depending upon what the situation is and what we're spending the money for.
Jamie, can you call out on the QuickBooks the isolated legal bills related to the town of Brookfield, please?
I have that available.
I anticipated a legal question, so do you have a time frame that you want? Or
2012.
2012, all right. So for all legal bills, and let me clarify that, we put, somebody have a? The sheriff? Oh, okay, well, I guess I can't yell at you again.
Can you hear that way up there?
Yeah, we actually go. Well, we only have a $500 fine if it's a phone. So I guess that doesn't count, huh?
Not a phone.
No, no extra money for the budget there. When we put money, when we code things for legal, we include any expenses that are related to that particular legal issue. So, hey, now we get $500. Thank you for pitching in. We code anything that is related to that particular legal fight to legal. So when, Lorraine, if I may call you Lorraine,
Right.
if you are going to be reviewing this report, you will see some things in there that may be a court reporter, or maps, or a specialist of some kind, or whatever it might be. I mean, it's all detailed in here. We put any expenses that are related to that particular fight in that area, even if it may be an engineering fee, let's say. If it's isolated
Yeah.
for this particular event or this particular fight, it all goes into that particular legal category. So, and because we have it all segregated as to who the checks get paid to, it's very easy for us to see who actually got paid and call out specific legal fees to attorneys versus any, consultants or any periphery items that we have. So the total quote legal expense January through December 2012, we have in QuickBooks as $254,691, so call it $255,000.
But in a
But that-
separate category.
Oh, I'm sorry, you did ask me for town of Brookfield, didn't you? Three copies, where's my third? 1, 2, oh, thank you. City of Waukesha, general matters. Great. So I did all of it. You specifically have to have just 2012 because I have it from the beginning of time.
I have 2012.
You do? Okay, then give us 2012, because I've got it from the beginning of time.
Or just for town of Brookfield section is 131,615.28.